From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day on the Ticats Audio Network. My name is Courtney Stephen. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Mike Daly. And Mike, in the words of Bruce Buffer, it's time. The regular season is upon us. No more practicing, no more training camp, no more what ifs. It's just exactly what we've been waiting for. The time to put the pads on, put the real jerseys on with the true starters, and roll the ball out there and see who wins, man. How are you feeling on this game day morning?
Yeah, you're right. This is what we've been waiting for now. I mean, the preseason stuff, that was, fun. Let's make the team. But now this is really what matters. You see how the roster shapes out. And, I mean, it's so exciting to get into the first game. Because, Court, how did you feel coming out of preseason, going into the first game? I mean, it's tough because it's such a long season, right? You know the path you have in front of you. But there's something like that first game where it's like, whoa, this really matters now because this counts on the record. This is what takes our steps to that Grey Cup.
Absolutely, and all the work that has been put into this point, you feel confident. We're actually seeing the third game for the CFL that's been played. There have been games in the last couple of days, so the guys have had a chance to sit in the hotel room, watch some of their friends from other cities bang pads, go toe-to-toe, go down to the wire. We've seen some great finishes so far. That just gets you a little bit more excited to show up and do your thing. Because at the end of the day, this is the entertainment business. And these guys, when the lights come on, they turn into superstars. So we're going to see Coach Orlando Steinauer's black and gold travel into watermelon country to take on the Green Riders, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, led by Craig Dickinson. And these two foes know each other well. Last year, they split the series 1-1. Each team won at home. But I think, 0-0. 0-0. Both teams have no wins, no losses. Anything can happen on week one in the CFL. So, Mike, let's start out talking about who's actually going to be the characters in the storyline today. Let's talk about the lineups. I think the most critical lineup change that's happening is Cariel Brooks for the Hamilton Tiger Cats will not be in the lineup. He is on the 6-game injured list along with Coulter Woodmansey, Tyler Ternowski and Lamar Durant. Those guys are all going to be out of action for the foreseeable future. But Cariel Brooks, he did not play all week. He's a guy who led the CFL in interceptions in 2021 with 5. He's got 12 interceptions on the career. And in 58 games, he really has been durable. He hasn't missed much action at all. So it's going to be a noticeable face missing for some of those players, because chemistry has a big impact on your performance. And sometimes the comfort level of just knowing I can trust that the guy next to me is going to be exactly where he's supposed to be. I feel like that could be something early on. We see a noticeable difference if Cariel Brooks is not in the lineup and the Ticats are still trying to get their feet wet. What do you think about Alden Darby stepping into that spot, the new kid on the block, to fill in for Cariel Brooks?
Yeah, and the thing you talked about is the chemistry, right? But the nice thing about, like we said earlier, having Alden Darby is he's experienced. He's been around the league for a little bit. He kind of understands emotions, all that kind of stuff. So when, you're in a position of making adjustments on the field, right? Like Tunde will be at free or Jovan will be at Mike. To have a guy that's playing inside like that at the boundary halfback that knows what's going on, that's seen things before, that's huge because you're absolutely right. The reason Cariel Brooks was so good is he's seen it all already, right? And he's a smart football player. So when you're out there, he's the one making the checks half the time. He's understanding what's going on. He's alerting guys to stuff. But you look at that whole defensive back crew, and we talked about that for a while. That's an experienced group. Mm-hmm. So they've seen everything that's going to show up. I mean, there's going to be things that surprise them. But the cool thing about that is with Alden Darby in there and seeing things from a different position, right? Playing the Sam before, now playing the boundary half. It's going to be a quick adjustment. It's going to be a quick, hey, how should we play this? Blah, 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 blah. We'll play it like this. We'll play it like that. And then it'll just be smooth. So I'm excited to see how Alden Darby steps in, jumps in with that crew, steps in for Carriel Brooks. But you're absolutely right, man. Not having Carriel Brooks is huge because what people don't know about him, you hear about all the interceptions, stuff like that. He is a good run player. Mm-hmm. He is a good run defender. He can tackle. He's one of the best at it as a defensive back. And to miss him, it's you're going to feel a little bit no matter who steps in there, even though Alden Darby will be ready to go.
Well, they're trying not to fall off any one iota. They have high hopes. They've got high standards. And when you're talking about experience, that defensive backfield, 297 games between the five guys in that back end, not including the Sam linebacker. But moving on to another aspect of that defensive lineup, the triangle defense inside. I'm talking about Jovan Santos Knox, Simone Lawrence, Cam Kelly. These guys played every game together last year. It's a storyline that we've spoken about before. And they've led this defense, along with that front four, to be the strongest run D in the CFL, allowing less than 80 yards per game on the ground. It's going to be great to see if they can continue the streak of dominant defense that they started last season. And another thing of note, the Ticats are only starting one Canadian on defense up front, electing to go with Malik Courtney and Carney and Micah Johnson, the two new Ticats on that D-line, next to Dylan Wynn and, of course, Julian Hauser. So we've got four dogs up front, All-Americans, Tunde the lone Maple Leaf on that defensive lineup. I think the key here is going to be how this new D-line gels and if they're able to get some pressure against a really strong offensive line for Saskatchewan.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, right? You're going to see Ted Laurent. He'll be out there, I promise you. He is too good not to be able to be seen out there, right? But to see Micah Johnson step in there, it's going to be fun because I know, he played at Sask for a while, and that's a little bit of a homecoming for him. So he's going to be pretty fired up. And that guy on film, he would flash. He is a good player. He's big body. It's tough to deal with that guy. So to watch him and Dylan Wynn on the inside, those two guys are tough to deal with. I mean, talk about a nightmare for the offensive line that's going to have to play against those guys. But Malik Carney, he got a little bit of playing time last year, but not too much, right? And so it'll be really interesting to see how he fills those shoes of Jagger Davis, right? And not that, a man will walk in somebody else's shoes, but Malik Carney to step up and play alongside Julian Hauser. We all know Hauser's going to do his thing, and he's going to get to the quarterback, but to see Malik Carney get out here and kind of come into his own. And like you said, it's interesting to see with the first week that flexibility that the Ticats are already having to go to on this roster, right? I mean, with Lamar Duran out, he was a projected starter, right? Coulter Woodmansey out, projected starter, Canadian, both Canadian, right? Carriel Brooks, projected. And now to see how they got to round this thing out. But like you said, when you got Simone, Jovan, and Cam Kelly on the inside, it's going to be a tough day for Sask. That's for sure.
Takes care of a lot of problems. And you know what? That's where the skill set of a Canadian Football League GM, a personnel staff, really has to shine. You're not just putting pieces together. You have to put Canadians balance with Americans, keep the ratio, mix in a global player, get the kicking game right. All these variables to consider. And that's why it's interesting the approach the Ticats take compared to the approach of their rival today, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. On Sask defense, they go with two Canadians, with Lacombo and Mike Edom, the safety of 9 years, who's in the backfield there. Another familiar face that Tiger Town will recognize, Larry Dean, number 11, will be playing that will linebacker. Last year, he missed the entire season with an Achilles injury. We know that he can make plays. He's going to be prepared, played many, many downs in the CFL and the NFL. This guy is a pro, so I know a lot of people will be excited to see him back on the field. And then, of course, you've got AC Leonard leading the Dogs up front. There's a formidable defense on the other side, but they go with 2 Canadians on their defense, which allows them to dress an additional American offensive lineman. So what are you seeing that's standing out to you about that Sask defense?
I think, having Larry Dean back, they're gonna be missing him for sure, because with him back, he's going to be making plays all over the field. We know that from, Ticat fans, from Ticat players. He knows what he's doing out there. He's going to be just back to his regular self, I'm sure. AC Leonard is a problem. I don't know how else to put that.
Let's just talk about the facts.
AC Leonard is a problem because, you can put on the film and it doesn't matter. The best O-linemen in this league are having an issue with him. He's long, he's athletic. He's tough to deal with. So, for wherever he lines up, whether it's on Van Zyl, whether it's on Travis, right, it's going to take a lot to block him. And like you said, they have such a good run defense. So, to take it to the air like they're going to have to, those guys are going to be pinning their ears back, right? And AC Leonard, that's kind of where he makes his hay. And then secondly, what I noticed, the first thing that stood out to me when I saw Sask's depth chart is their receivers are pretty good, right? Kean Schaefer-Baker coming into his own for sure, and now getting into his second year. He's a good player, man. He's a good player. And then they just picked up Duke Williams, which we all know about Duke Williams. He's that big play guy. And then Shaq Evans, for him to be healthy, I know last year he was hurt quite a bit, but that's a good crew that's coming out to test our DBs and our linebackers, right? And with Sask struggling a little bit with the deep ball last year, bringing Duke Williams in, that's kind of that look to, hey, let's kind of air it out to this guy. Let's see what we can do downfield with him. And, I would imagine there's going to be a couple times this game where Cody's going to say, I got Duke over there. Let's put him in a position to throw the ball up and see how this goes.
Absolutely. I foresee them trying to create matchups with different body types using guys like Duke, Kean, Shaq. These are all taller receivers, bigger bodies, and I think they will try to put them to that field side for the Ticats and match them up against Deontay and Richard Leonard, who are the shorter of the DBs for the Ticats. Now, obviously, these guys are pros, and they've earned all-star honors, both of them, for the way that they defend the pass, but offensive coordinators, they always want to look for a little bit of an edge, and a guy like Duke Williams, a big body, runs down the field, he's fast, he's got strength at the point of contact, which is important, that body control to go up and get it. I think it will be interesting when we see, especially in the second half, when the coaches get a chance to adjust, see how the Ticats are playing, see how the Riders are playing, and then call some of those big plays where they see an opportunity. That will be a matchup. The DBs for Ticats versus the receivers, and Cody Fajardo for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Cody Fajardo, most pass attempts in 2021, 404, 90.9 QBR. He was very efficient with the ball, had about 70% completions percentage. But you know what that means to me? It doesn't mean that he's necessarily stretching the field like you mentioned. It means that he's doing a good job of finding the check down and using his feet to extend a play, not necessarily to run, but to create more space for his receivers to just get a little bit open. I think for the Ticats, in order to contain a quarterback like Cody Fajardo, who's so dynamic, you have to be aware of where the running back is when Cody is extending a play, because he can just flick it to that guy and get a nice 2-3 yards instead of taking a sack. And over the course of the game, that turns into first downs, that extends drives, that can get your guys fatigued in the fourth quarter if they can't get off the field. So one of the keys that I'm going to be paying attention to is, can that triangle defense on the inside, can the linebackers locate the running back and take care of that guy after the receivers have been covered for 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi? Are they going to just give up the easy underneath to the running back and extend drives, or are they going to be able to play a complementary defense where the D-line gets pressure, the back end sews it up, and the linebackers take away that check down so that Cody Fajardo has to throw the ball into the dirt, throw it into the sidelines, or force it into somewhere where it's an ill-advised pass. I think that's going to be a key for this defense to have success for the Ticats.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing, too, is you talked about it, Cody can move around a little bit, right? If you look at their offense in the past, especially with Jason Moss over there, right? Like, that motion is insane. The amount of motion they run to get them in the first week. And, so, Court, maybe this is where it comes into play, where this experience on the defensive end that you don't normally see in week one, right? You normally see a lot of new starters, maybe one or two that are still trying to learn the game. But looking across the board, other than Malik Carney, who's been in here, everybody's started a good amount of games, right? Mm-hmm. So to see that motion early, how tough is that in week one when you come in just out of training camp? The only motion you've seen is the 2 preseason games in your team, right? Is that a tough thing to deal with when you come in? And how do you deal with that once you've seen it? Like once you get over to the sideline and stuff like that, how do you start figuring, okay, listen, this is how they're attacking us clearly today. How are we going to communicate between passing these motions off, between making our checks? What's that look like in that week one?
I think the coaching calls have a lot to do with it. Knowing what zone the ball is in, if the ball's in the middle of the field, if they're backed up, depending if they get the ball close to the end zone, coach is going to call something to let the defense settle in early, I think, and either force the offense to make a decision quick or allow the guys on the defense to sit back and get their feet wet without risking it of getting caught up in one of those things. Knowing the personnel that you're going up against, I don't think that you come out and put the guys in a man-to-man where they can't switch off and everybody's chasing around with their heads cut off. I'm coming out, maybe I'm calling a zone blitz early. We're going to stay home. We're going to stay exactly where we are, and we're going to go light them up. And if they want to play cute like that, I hope they know where their protection scheme puts them after all that running around. If I'm Mark Washington, that's how I'm coming out of the gate because I want to dictate the pace. I don't want to be the one on our heels, knowing their scheme and how they like to confuse with a lot of different visuals, a lot of different things flashing in front of your eyes. Let the defense settle in. Call something that allows guys to stay home, play fast, and then get into a rhythm. I anticipate that happening. And speaking of getting into a rhythm, a guy we haven't spoken about yet, probably a guy that most people are actually showing up to watch perform, Dane Evans and that Ticat offense. He has a few weapons to throw that thing around now, too. He's going to be protected by Travis Vorknaw, Brandon Revenberg, the man among men. Never wore gloves a day in his life. You know, a tough guy when he only has finger tape on. Alex Fontana.
Probably lifts in the off season with just like rocks, I'd imagine.
He probably lifts weights in the locker room before kickoff. Jesse Gibbon and Chris Van Zyl, the wily veteran. That offensive line is going to be tasked with protecting Dane Evans as he tries to deliver the ball downfield to Ungerer, Poppy White, Tim White, Dunbar Jr., and of course Agent Zero, Braylon Addison. Now that is a heck of a lineup at receiver. There is a ton of speed there. These guys are going to be trying to put on the track spikes, turn this thing into a track meet. I know Tommy Condell, speaking of game plans, he's going to have something up his sleeve to deceive, confuse, and get these receivers open. What are you looking for in week one from Dane Evans and this dynamic offense for the Ticats?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think, is to see Dane kind of settle into his own, right? There's a big difference when it's a battle for the position and when you've earned the position and it's your position now, right? There's a huge difference in mentality, and people kind of take it one of two ways, right? It's complacency or it's, okay, this is my legacy, now let's go. And both of us know in Dane, I think it's the latter of the two for sure. So to see him come in and kind of settle down and just take what's there for him, right? Not try to make it something out of nothing, right? Take what's there. The second thing is I think Tommy's going to cook something up that's going to make it easy for him. It's going to be, we said it earlier on in the preseason, to have a guy like Poppy White, Braylon Addison, who are these like Swiss Army knives, right? They're these guys that can yeah, they're great receivers. They can break people off on routes, stuff like that, really get downfield. But they're also guys that know how to maneuver in the backfield, right? Take a handoff or two. Be able to, bunch of smoke and mirrors like we were talking with Sask. It's a hard thing to deal with week one coming out of training camp because you're used to just seeing your team. So to have a guy like Poppy White in there, Braylon Addison, that are going to be doing these different type of motions, that are being taking handoffs and getting downfield and running routes and getting open for Dane, that will be interesting to see. But I'm just focused on seeing Dane come in, play the game that he's playing, right? Not try to do too much. That's not what it's about here. Let your playmakers make your plays, right? Get that ball out early so that D-line on Sask can't start, like I said, pinning their ears back, trying to get to them. Because if if Mosaic Stadium gets rocking and they're into it, you and I know better than anybody, that's a tough place to play because it gets loud. Their fans feel like they're directly over top of you. So just to see Dane settle in, make his throws that he normally does, and kind of get a rhythm going.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be going with the silent count on offense. That means the center isn't going to be hearing Dane. The guard next to the center will tap him on the leg when it's time to snap the ball because they won't be able to hear much through those fans screaming with the watermelons on their head. But you know what? That's a great environment to play in. It can energize you, and if you're a pro, you look forward to those things. I'm looking forward to Poppy White getting the ball. That guy is extremely fast. Braylon Addison, I think they're motion into the backfield, like you mentioned, and force some of the DBs to become linebackers. See if they know how to fit the gaps. See if their eyes can get in the right spot when there's a lot of motion in the backfield. The defensive coordinators, they practice all of these things in walkthroughs and in practice. But in a game when there's so much emotion, you're excited to get in there, all different kinds of things are happening. Sometimes the smallest detail is missed. And I expect Tommy Condell to test out those rules and that discipline on that defense. So a big storyline here that we haven't touched on is the running back position. We mentioned that the Ticats are only starting one Canadian on defense. So they got to start another Canadian somewhere else. And on the offensive side of the ball, they got Sean Thomas Erlington getting the start at running back ahead of Don Jackson. I believe that the D lineman is tied at the hip to the running back in this one because if Ted Laurent is starting, then I think that allows Don Jackson to start. And if Ted is not starting or if Mason Bennett is not starting, then I think that's where Sean Thomas Erlington steps in. He's proven he's well more than capable. It will be interesting to see how many touches he gets early in the screen game and the run game to make that worth it. He's also good at blocking, not afraid to stick his nose in there, and today he will need to do that with a ton of pressure coming from that defense. Do you think we see Don Jackson in this game today a little bit? Do you think he gets in there?
Yeah, I think what's going to end up happening, what I see tied together too, is you're absolutely right. If Ted's in there, then maybe they go with Don because Don's a difference maker. The nice thing about Sean is he can get out, and he's a good receiver, so he can get moving around, he can get open. But I think what you'll see a lot in this game is when they go what we call two-back personnel with Jake Burt coming in, right? Or a bigger body type guy. Maybe that's Lamar Durant down the road or whoever that might be. But when you see them go two-back, I think that's where you'll see Don come in. So depending on how they want to run the ball, if they want to bring in some bigger bodies like Jake, well, then that brings that Canadian in, right? And then so you take out an American receiver, bring that fullback, that Canadian fullback in, that allows you to put Don in the backfield and get him some two-back runs, right? And then I guess just spelling off, I'd imagine they'll try to get him the ball. When you have him on the roster, Don Jackson, we've played against him, played with him. When you have him on the roster, you get him the ball.
You got to feed him.
You got to, because he's a game breaker, man. He does everything really well. He's quick. He can make guys miss, but he runs extremely hard. When you look at him, he's not the most towering guy, right? He's not the biggest guy in the world. But then when you see him run into people on that field, you go, holy cow, this guy looks like an old school Jerome Bettis running into people.
Man,
right?
it looks like they pay him by the yard. He wants every single one of those things, man. And then after he gets up and he lets you know, hey, it's another first down, guys. Come on, feed me. But it would be great to see Don J get in the game, be a spark plug. We know that he is one of those battery packs, charges up the whole team. Mike, tell us a little bit about what key matchups you're seeing that we should pay attention to as fans in this game. Where will you be focused?
Yeah, definitely the receivers against the DBs, like stated before. But secondly, like you said, with that O-line having to go to a silent count, right? Jesse Gibbon coming in. He's played a few games, but not a ton. He's still cutting his tooth in this league a little bit. And then Fontana to come in at that center spot. Like I said before, center's a tough spot because you're the one making all the calls, right? And for the longest time, Mike Filer was there. So the key thing with Mike and then Darius Sirocco, who was there before, they had a ton of experience with that group. To see Fontana come in and just have the one training camp, that's going to be the matchup that I'm looking at. Because, blocking your guy, yeah, that's absolutely the point of O-line. But if the communication isn't there, just like in the defensive backfield, right? If the communication isn't there, it does not matter how good you are. It doesn't matter if everybody can win all of their one-on-ones. If one guy's sliding the wrong way or if the call's made, incorrectly on that play, there's somebody running free through right at Dane, right into his face. And I'll tell you what, it's probably pretty hard to throw the ball when somebody's getting unblocked right at your face, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Just seeing the communication and kind of, getting together as a group and playing well and doing things right, making the right calls. That's what I'm interested to see.
Absolutely. Offensive line must play as a single unit. Otherwise, they might as well not be out there. It's a tough position to play. You don't get a lot of glory. You don't collect stats unless you give up sacks. So it's tough for those old linemen, but we got faith in you. A key matchup I will be paying attention to is Jamal Roll playing his 50th career CFL game, going up against Shaq Evans, bouncing back off an injury-riddled season. These are two guys who have made some big plays. And I like the fact that Jamal Roll is a big physical corner who's not afraid to go up there and press cover. He's got great footwork, strong body type, long arms. He's confident one-on-one down the field, plays with technique. And Shaq Evans is a guy who runs the entire route tree. He wants the ball. He's going to get his targets. So you can guarantee that they will be matched up on second down situations. I want to see how this shakes out. They're going to be at least 4 or 5 times, I think, that they get targeted. And who wants it, really? When you sign these guys up to play, this is actually what they want. They want to have a so-called clash of titans, if you will. And if you put the ISO cam on that corner, when you see Jamal Roll creep up there and get 1 yard off the ball, I think that's primetime TV worth paying for. I want to see how that matchup goes and if Cody Fajardo can take advantage or if he gets taken advantage of trying to test Roll Island.
Yeah, and actually one thing that I want to look at too is, and we had touched on it before, is Simon Larea. He's the new punter. We signed him maybe 3-4 days ago. So we signed him right out of camp. And he's going to be out there punting. And that's going to be interesting.
Does that make you nervous? All right, sorry.
Yeah,
I had to
so when I
address
say
the elephant
interesting
in the room, man. Can we talk about it like for real? The Ticats need somebody who can kick that ball, man. They put through a lot of guys, and now this is not me talking. This is just me reading the news. They've had a lot of different guys kick that ball, a ton of them. So that's a storyline. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the black and gold fans are going to be watching that storyline to see how it plays out. It's a great opportunity for whoever can step into that role. Amazing opportunity, because if you put it down, you're locked in. The Ticats need that guy. But hey, you got to show up on game day. Anybody can do it in practice, right? Last matchup that I have is Domagala versus Lawther. The place kickers. Brett Lawther has actually been a huge weapon for Sask over the years. He's hit some 50-yard game winners. He's done it in the clutch. Obviously, you have to play offense, defense, special teams. So will the Ticats show up in all three phases? Will the Riders show up in all three phases? I think the team that plays the most complete game actually ends up winning. Kind of just piggybacking off what you said with the punt game, the kickers is going to be crucial that they nail the points when they get an opportunity to, because nothing is for free in this league. What's the key storyline that you're paying attention to heading into this one, Mike?
Yeah, definitely just seeing Dane settle in. I think that's what we're all kind of looking at. That's, like I said, for Dane to come in and it be his show now. My key storyline is to make sure that when he comes out early, when the game gets tight, stuff like that, he's just finding his receivers, right? Stephen Dunbar, I think, is going to be an outlet for him. He's going to be the one guy that you're going to go, okay, you know what? Looks like it's one-on-one. Looks like I have a shot over here. When that's available, take it, right? Just like we said with Duke Williams, they're going to try to line him up and get him on people to try to take advantage of that situation. I think Stephen Dunbar is that guy. So to see Dane settle in, and then when that opportunity's there, like he has in the past, take that shot, give your guys a chance. But that's kind of my key storyline to look at is Dane comfortable with where he is? Is he comfortable with the offense? And there's going to be some growing pains for sure, right? But is he comfortable? Is he looking like Dane of old and kind of picking apart the defense, moving around, extending plays, finding people open? I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah, Dane has not won as a starter against Saskatchewan yet. He's only had one try, so this would be a great way for him to break the ice starting the season, getting 2022 on a roll. The key for him to win, in my eyes, he has to spread the ball around, use all of those receivers. If he starts leaning too heavily into just Braylon Addison alone, I think the defense for Saskatchewan will be able to key into that. He's got to find the check down when it's necessary, Sean Thomas-Erlington, or if that's a receiver who's just hovering over that ball, waiting as an outlet, just a security blanket. He's got to find that guy certain times instead of trying to force the ball downfield. I think he does a good job of that, but it'll be absolutely critical to do it in a pressure situation. And the offensive line has to keep him off the ground because it's like you mentioned, it's hard to make plays all game long when you got to dance and you got to make magic. Of course, here and there, you're going to be forced to step up, to roll out, to escape the pocket, to reverse pivot and just find space. But if that is a every play situation, it will be very, very tough to win. Of course, get some help in the kicking game. And I think that's a recipe for success. 7 p.m. Eastern time in Regina, Mosaic Stadium. The Black and Gold Ticats take on the Green Riders, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, led by Craig Dickinson. It's here on the Ticats audio network. You can listen at listen.ticats.ca or on the Ticats All Access app. Appreciate you tuning in to me and Mike Daly. Catch Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantuz with the pregame starting at 6. And, of course, RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker have the call, as always. This is week 1 of season 2022 in the CFL. We'll be with you all the way. Hope you guys enjoy the game. We will talk to you next time. Take care.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.